Hello all, welcome to Get Set Law. So since only 5 months is left in our Clat examination, now it is the most crucial time where you realize or where you see that the mistakes that you are continuously making in your mock sections, in your mock test sections, and try to rectify it. Today we'll be talking about some of the ways in which you are killing your scores in legal reasoning section. Why specifically legal reasoning section? Because this is your tiebreaker section. So whenever there's a tie in your score, so whoever is getting higher scores in legal reasoning section will get a higher rank, right? So that is why legal reasoning section becomes more important. Today we'll see some of the common mistakes that students continue to make in their mock examination, which ultimately have an impact or which ultimately affect their overall scores. So let's start with this video and let's start with the session. Make sure to watch the video till the end. So first and the most important thing is passages. So when you are thinking that, suppose let's take an example that there is a passage given on negligence, and then you're like, okay, I have read this passage quite a few times, I have read the concept of negligence, I'm a master, I'm a pro in negligence, and then you make that one blunder, you make that one mistake of not reading the passages and directly jumping to the question. So sometimes I'll tell you something what goes wrong here. So you know the concept, that is not wrong. What is incorrect is the approach here is incorrect, because sometime in the passages examiner do one thing to trick you, that they change some of the facts. In legal reasoning section, your legal knowledge is not tested. What is rather tested is how you apply a given principle to the question, to the factual scenario that is there. So suppose they make some changes, even a minor change in the passage, in the information that is given in passage, then since you are applying that extra knowledge of the concept that you gathered in your lectures, that you gathered in your class, and then you miss out on the important details that were changed in the passage, and you lose out on a marks which you could have very easily scored. So one mistake that I've seen multiple students do, that they don't focus on easy passages, thinking that okay, I know this information, so let me skip this passage and directly go to the question. टाइम सेव करना है, पर पैसेज स्किप करके कभी टाइम सेव नहीं करना है. सो वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट यू शुड बी फोकसिंग अपॉन इज information that is given in the passage. So make sure that you focus on this information that is there in the passage and you stick to it. Now the next biggest blunder that the student make is, हम सब ने लीगल पढ़ा है, हम सबको पता है कि वो टॉपिक में क्या चीज़ें आती है, लेकिन एग्जाम के टाइम पर यू आर नॉट सपोज टू अप्लाई दैट एक्स्ट्रा इन्फॉर्मेशन. सो दिस इज द सेकेंड बिगेस्ट मिस्टेक दैट वी मेक इज वी अप्लाई दिस एक्स्ट्रा नॉलेज, वी टेंड टू अप्लाई दिस एक्स्ट्रा नॉलेज कि अच्छा मैम ने तो हमें एक मैगजीन भी पढ़ाई थी कि मर्डर के एक्सेप्शंस होते हैं, मैम ने हमें बताया था कि मर्डर के एक्सेप्शंस होते हैं क्लास में, लेकिन यहाँ पैसेज में नहीं है, बट क्वेश्चन में दिख रहा है कि ग्रेव एंड सडन प्रोवोकेशन एक एक्सेप्शन है, ग्रेव एंड सडन प्रोवोकेशन के वजह से द पर्सन इज एक्टिंग इन दैट मैनर, तो हमें इसे एक्सेप्शन का बेनिफिट देना चाहिए, हमें इसे कल्पेबल होमिसाइड में लायबल करना चाहिए. So this mistake you should avoid. If your passage is not talking about the exceptions to murder, you will not apply that concept, you will not apply that while marking the answer. So please keep your extra knowledge aside. Whatever information is given in the passage, try to stick to that. And even the passage is easier, even the passage is tougher, always do read the passage. This is the first mistake that the students tend to make. Now let's look at the other mistakes. So next is when eliminating the options. So when we talk about options, there are 4 options given to a question. How do we go on elimination? We have learnt so many things, we have learnt about the concepts, but all of us, we tend to have that sense of right and wrong, that no, the person suffered wrong, so some justice should be given to the person, there was something right, so some options that appeal to your morality, such kind of options you should always be avoiding. Next is the extreme options. Extreme options like only this is the way out, there is no remedy at all to be given to the person. Such kind of options are always very extreme in nature, and that is not the correct answer. Next, and the most important thing that I have seen, I'd rather say this is the most common error that most of us make, is always stick to the question. If question is asking you about What is the validity of a particular bill or a particular law? Just discuss about the validity. Don't go on making suggestion that okay, with this changes in the bill you can actually make the bill valid. That is not asked out of you. What is asked out of you is whether given scenario may bill is correct or not, bill is valid or not. That is what you are supposed to do. You are not supposed to give suggestions unless and until the suggestion is asked in the question. So all those options, so this is the mistake that we generally make. So we are able to reach to yes and no, we are able to reach to whether the answer should be yes, whether the answer should be no. Where we get struck is we try to give suggestions when it is not asked from us. So always avoid those reasoning that is not answering the question that is asked, rather that is giving some extra information in the reasoning or giving some extra suggestions in the reasoning. That will always be an incorrect answer. So make sure that you are sticking to the question that is asked, avoiding suggestive answers, avoiding extreme options, and avoiding the moral options. So this is the second mistake that we discussed. Now let's talk about some of the other things that are relevant or that will help you to prevent, or maybe that will help you to avoid losing out your scores in legal section. So next is current affairs section. So we have so many things to read about in GK, right? We have so many things that we read in GK. We learn so many new topics and so many new concepts, one liner thing. Now again we have to read about the legal articles as well. So let me tell you something. If you look at the past papers, the trend has shifted slightly. So now we don't see so many questions from static legal, rather we see questions coming from the current legal affairs. Okay, so what is this current legal affairs, current legal GK? So these are nothing, these are rather based on the recent judgments or guidelines that is given by Supreme Court, some of the recent judgments, some of the recent guidelines that are there. So when whatever new judgment, whatever new guidelines that the court gives, so all of this becomes important, all of this becomes relevant. Like I'll give you an example, the verdict on Ram Mandir, or maybe the verdict on same-sex marriage, the legalization of same-sex marriage. So all of these become important for you. Recently Supreme Court constituted a gender sensitization committee. All of this become relevant for you. Next is some of the important bills. This you can also tell me, I want you to give me the most important criminal law bills that came into effect recently, the name of all these three bills that came into effect recently. So such kind of thing, I want you to give me the name of these three bills in the comment section. So such kind of thing, any bills, any law that is changing the legal system of the country, the domain of the country. Like we had digital competition bill, we had draft Indian stamp bill. So all of these bills which are replacing the previous bills, or maybe which is bringing a new change in the tech system, tech era. So all of these things are relevant, all of these things become important for you, like the three criminal law bills that I'm asking you. So all of these important information on all these bills becomes important for you. You don't have to learn everything by heart, but read around the topic so that if the passage comes in the exam, you at least have some idea about the topic, you know something about the topic. It is not something which is very new to you, right? Next is important amendments. So if suppose an act is amended, if suppose constitution is amended, so whatever amendments are passed, so you get information, you get articles around those amendments, that again become important for you, because around that amendment I can ask you questions, I can give you a passage, and then I can ask you certain questions around that. Last and the most important thing is name of the position holders. This directly will never come into legal section, but again if we are reading about a legal event, this is also important for our GK section. So suppose the passage is not there in the legal section, but the passage might turn up in the GK section. So when you are covering a particular event, cover the background information as well. So suppose you are reading about the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal, have information about ED, director of ED, and everything, CBI and everything. So all the position holders, be it important portfolios, be it the chief minister, chief justices, the name of all these important portfolio become important for you. Even for the states, the governors of state, the chief ministers of the state, all of this becomes very much relevant for you. So make sure that you are memorizing all these position holders name when you are reading about any state specific issue, you are reading about any law that is affecting a state. So that way it becomes very much important for you. And not just with respect to state, other constitutional position holders, like who like the CAG, attorney general, all of the name of all these position holders, chief election commissioner, this becomes very much important for you. Okay, one more thing that I want to tell you is that we tend to often ignore the legal theory. So don't do that. So whatever happens, so we are putting in new information, we are collecting the information about maybe the legal current affairs, we are collecting the information about the legal GK and everything, but we tend to somehow forget the few notes, the notes that we have made during our classes. So some of the important tips, some of the important information that teachers, they give it to us when we are reading, when we are in the lecture, right? We make such notes in our class notes, in our running handwriting. So we often tend to ignore those notes. Don't do that. Every 15 days, just open your notebook wherever you have made your class notes and just try to recapitulate it. Ki, okay, this was the tip that was given during the class, this was the things that were relevant during the class. So make sure that you're reading about all those things. All those things becomes very much important for you, because with revision you will be able to understand the legal words, the legal jargons, the topics that were there, even the small topics that were part of your syllabus that you discussed during your class. Legal vocabulary, sometimes the trick is around the legal vocabulary as well. So we often tend to lose out our marks when we are not aware of some legal terms, when we don't know the meaning of that term. So that way we interpret it in a wrongful manner. So that is why we tend to lose out on the marks. But don't hesitate there. So if you see any legal word you're not able to understand the meaning of, try to read the sentence, try to think whether you have heard about such word or not, and then try to mark the answer, because with sentence pretty much the answer will be clear, the meaning of the word will be clear to you. And whenever you come across during your reading as well, you come across some legal terms, so there is a legal article where maybe you have read about prescription, so go and read about it. Okay, what is this prescription right, what is this, let me learn about it, let me make a small notebook where I'm keeping the tab of all the legal vocabulary that I'm learning about, right? So that becomes again the important thing for you all. Next is legal maxims and phrases, the terms, the maxims that are used during your classroom teaching, that is given in your module, that is there with respect to the case laws. So all of these maxims also become important to you, because sometimes you get questions from this maxims only. So make sure, and there is no way around it. So when you learn about maxims, there are certain words, the meaning of which if you know, you will be able to figure out the meaning of the entire maxim. But some of the important maxims like quid pro quo or qui facet per illum facet per se, all of these related to vicarious liability consideration, all of these are very basic maxims that you need to memorize, that you need to learn, because sometimes you get questions from these maxims as well, right? And lastly, one question that I want to answer, because I've heard this question a lot of time, ma'am, जो passage आया था, वो passage I've not read about, the passage I'm not aware of, तो अभी इसलिए I was not able to mark the questions out of 5, only one question I was able to mark, and that too because that was directly given in the passage. So that is why I was able to do it. And apart from all these things, I also lost 7 to 10 minutes there, right? So this is one issue that all of us are facing. So let's see how do we tackle that. So हमने हमेशा जब हम स्कूल में RCs solve करते थे, reading comprehension solve करते थे, we have always seen unseen passages that come. So unseen passages, basically we have not read about it, right? We don't know about that passages, we have no information about that passages, we are reading it for the first time. But by the time you appear for your CLAT examination, you are aware about some legal terms, some legal vocabulary. You're not someone who is completely unfamiliar with legal terminologies, legal domain, right? You have read some of the laws, right? So when you go and see those passages, just be confident that you'll be able to do it. It's not that tough. So when you read the passages, try to highlight, try to mark on the important words, important sentences covering the observation, eligibility criteria, or marking given in the pointers. So whenever you see such kind of things, generally the questions are from these pointers only. Exceptions or something like that, you'll always get questions from these pointers only. So make sure that next time when you see some of the passages that you have not read before, that you don't know, that is new to you, right? The information is quite new to you. Don't panic. Just read the passage calmly. Try to attempt the questions. Try to go back and relate to the passages. This is the passage where you devote little bit of extra time. So when you know some passages, there you reduce your time. When some passages come to you, maybe something that you have not read about come in the paper, that is the time where you devote 1 minute, 2 minute extra to relate the question with the passage and then marking the answer. So that is how you try to do it. So being confident is the most important key. It is the key to solve the legal section. So when you are confident, you will be able to sail through it. It's not that difficult. You will not be asked कि मेरे को section 2 of contract act बताओ, yeah, tell me about some provision that is mentioned. So you'll not be asked those kind of questions or the landmark judgments around the same. But what you'll be asked is, this is the excerpt, this is the situation. Try to answer, try to apply that principle and answer how we can reach to the correct option, or maybe when you apply that principle, what can be the possible solution of in the given situation. Such kind of questions you are asked. So when you are aware, when you read, you'll be able to know, you'll be able to sail through it, even when it is unseen, even when something new comes up. Invest 1 minute extra to solve that passages, to relate back to the passage the questions that are there. Try to understand the crux of the questions. Don't rush into the question. Don't ever rush into the question. The mistakes that the students make is they rush into the question. So when you see the things like not incorrect, you often tend to mark incorrect one as the option. So don't do that. Such kind of mistakes can cost you 1 mark, and even a negative marking as well will be there, right? So don't tend to make such kind of mistakes. Just focus on the words that are there, focus on the sentences that are there, the question that is asked, crux of it, and then try to answer. So that is it from my side. I hope these suggestions and these tips were helpful to you. Let me know in the comment box how this video helped you in improving your scores, current scores and the scores after watching this video. Let me know that in the comment box, and see you all with such informative content in the next video. Thank you so much.